There he is. Fine.
But we can upload it on next time any videos.
We'll close it. We'll close it. Stop.
Three chairs over there.
Because yeah, they can blame us for piracy.
Good.
This is what happened today.
Good.
Yeah, we get to learn now.
There's no experience here. Until now, whatever videos we have shoot, it's already there.
Good.
Like I was entering this a condo policy and in the server, and then I was watching at the same time. Then all of a sudden, one message came when it started, right? This, when I said the video was shown, and after less than 5 minutes, the message pop up on the screen. Violation.
They are very
Policy now. Policy
It's
violation.
like an alert now.
How many songs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
To get equal. Ah, yeah, this is the last thing.
Last.
After this, only the prize distribution is left. So I slept for only 1 hour. And I had to prepare 6 minutes, write them, and learn them. I had to. I know, like there are like 3 people better than me at debating in the school. Oh yeah. No, I don't think Ashutosh is that good.
Player number 13. Six four.
I request all the participants to please take their places. That's Cadet Dhruv, Cadet Harshvardhan, Cadet Agam. Cross your. Thank you. We have all the participants on stage.
Oh, you are not love that. And after that is prize distribution, right?
Dual International, Srishti Motyal, Charu Sharma, Prakhar Dobal. Believe me, this is going to take longer than expected, so we will begin right away. St. George's College, Aryan Roy, Vaibhav, and Rachit. Wynberg-Allen, Dipansh, Aman, and Shrivik. Summer Valley, Vartika, Himadri, Manasini, and Suri Public School, Anjan and Dia.
Crazy.
Hurry up.
What happened in the second? Aman told me. Don't tell me there's something Aman told me. See, that's it, we lost. As it is, we don't compete. We just have to embarrass them. And yeah, but we are gonna get embarrassed. We won't get embarrassed. Bro, see the. No. Arch is there. See, if I had known that we wouldn't be competing, I would have like insulted him and humiliated him like after the debate I came to know that we weren't competing. And that is why I stopped preparing my questions. Because next time it comes, I'll be like humiliating him. Then in the second round, what happened was this guy took the cue cards. He won't want to take the cue cards. If he took the cue cards, he will be heavily penalized. Because of that, मतलब support होता है ना कि yes, you know that you can do. So this guy took down the moderator detectively and the judges overlooked it. And we didn't take it and that's why we found it. And then this guy got second best.
Kareem,
Who? How? Or second best is offer. No, in the second round. But just second. In the second round was the Frank Anthony. He got second best speaker again. First round. In the second round, this guy took the shoot. He did not get penalized or disqualified. We did not get to take the shots. That was what the problem was. Look at that.
Cynthia, you've checked the pencils?
You are doing what? So,
We call the judges now.
what? Yeah,
Mr.
our form is
Ratcliffe, Mr.
Oxford.
Tindale, and Mr. Doyle.
Like this name is Sunday. We I was in the night one. This guy like so we lost. Yeah. We were in the dining room. So it's like you lost in Delhi and came and shamelessly came back. I was like, no, sir, we shamefully lost. We shamefully lost and came back. I had long because it's like, I was like, so better than next time. So like, it was like, it was like, here till Delhi, all the like best schools, all the best educators are gone. We won and I got best speaker in the region, and then in the zonal we lost. It is regional, zonal is for North India, South India, East India, West India. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, that's the guy I hate. So we lost again North India.
Alright, so I'm going to delete the video.
Basically, it means put it as she went. She was eating dinner and she was looking at dinner. She was looking at she was yes, sir.
Shanae, Mr. Ratcliffe, and Mr. Doyle is there. Yeah, thank you. Can we close those doors, please? Thank you. Now, before we begin with the debate, I'll remind you again that we will not overshoot the time that is allotted to every speaker of 3 minutes, because you will be penalized. All right? And that goes for everyone. So 30 seconds, half, 0.5, right? Okay. So, and what do you prefer? Do you want me to bind the table or would you prefer this? The bed. Great, no problem. So yeah, so make sure you and no personal attacks, right? We keep to the argument. We attack the argument. Grace period only of 10 seconds, right? So they indicate to me, and you keep writing if they overshoot the time here, right? I'll just remove this. Good afternoon. I'm going to dispense with the announcement of the rules because we need to really hurry so that so that this event concludes on time. And I'd like to welcome our judges for this afternoon's debate, Mr. Doyle, Mr. Tinde, our principal, and Mr. Ratcliffe, the headmaster of the senior school. Thank you very much. And you know that this is the parliamentary format. Actually, it's a mix. So you've been sent the rules. You're all aware of the rules, right? And the topic is visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. And the first two schools are RIMC and Durham International, right? So I request the first speaker of the proposition, that's Cadet Dhruv Bhaiya, to please present his argument.
big question for politicians has always been, how do you take money from a taxpayer and not disturb a voter and then fly abroad on that very money? With that, greetings to the House. Today, I, being the first speaker of side proposition, am here wholeheartedly supporting the motion that this House believes that visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. Now, I, being the first speaker of the finals of the T.W. Phillips debate, deem it my prerogative to define to you the key aspects and the key words of this topic. Now, visits to foreign countries. Now that includes excursions or trips taken up by our politicians to go to foreign countries in any interest. Ladies and gentlemen, in any interest. And that is where the definition of our topic and their topic fundamentally disagrees. They say that it is in the best interest of the nation and the citizens, whereas we say it is in any interest, and in cases it is also for the personal interest of that very politician. Now, when we talk about Indian politicians, our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has been making headlines about visiting various countries, and a lot of them. Whereas let's not minute the scope of this debate, and let's keep the scope of this debate open and talk about every single Indian politician, whether it be a chief minister or whether it be a member of parliament. Now, ladies and gentlemen, detrimental. It shall be hilarious, or it might be weird when I try to join the dots of Narendra Modi flying out in an Air India flight and relating it to someone not getting basic necessities or food or water in his own city. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you how someone is detrimental to a certain entity. Now, if we neglect that certain entity, we are being detrimental to that certain entity, and that is what is side proposition stand today. Today, we are saying that the visits to these foreign countries is detrimental to a certain to the internal issues, because they are neglected at some point of time when our politicians visit foreign countries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the middle class man gets up in the morning, goes to work, works hard, and come home and files his tax papers. But little did that man know that his money or his tax money is being used for foreign excursions by our very Indian politicians. Now, I think the first speaker shall be dwelling upon the point that how these visits and what the politicians do on foreign soil is actually detrimental to our national welfare. You see, our own Prime Minister makes misogynist comments and says that he appreciates the Prime Minister of Bangladesh being a lady and having zero tolerance for women. What does that create, ladies and gentlemen? It creates more feminist rising in our country. It creates women and ladies saying that our own Prime Minister cannot support us. Let's fight this out by having protests and saying that we require feminism in this country. Now, he hands out all our spiritual books, all our Gitas to every head of state he meets, and at the same time, he is attacking the secularists of our country. That only increases the fanaticism, the mob instigations in our country, and that a single comment that is made by an Indian politician on foreign soil has a great impact on the mercurial people of our nation, ladies and gentlemen. They are molded by what these leaders or these politicians say on foreign soil. Ladies and gentlemen, our politicians promote embassies. They say, come to our country, establish embassies, and give visas to our people so that we can explore. But ladies and gentlemen, more than half the population gets rejected visas because they say he cannot adapt to the Western civilization. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my second speaker shall come and stress upon national welfare. My third speaker shall tell you about its implications and how is it detrimental, and of course, rebut the points of side opposition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, the beauty and burden of a democracy is that nothing prevails without the support of a majority or a majority of one. And ladies and gentlemen, today's politicians frame these mercury people of our nation and use their honest money to travel foreign nations. With that, thank you for your patient hearing, and until next time I come to rebut the points aside of. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dhruv. You overshot the time by 28 seconds. So just to remind you all, 2:30 a bell, and then 30 seconds later another bell. That should give you ample warning, right? So that you have to wind up. So now I'd like to request Shrishti Nautiyal of Doon International School as a Speaker of the Opposition to present your arguments.
Nelson Mandela, quote, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, his race, his religion. People learn to hate. And if people can learn to hate, then they can also learn to love by the modern era victualler called foreign relations." Unquote. Good afternoon, everyone. Standing here as side proposition, I would be presenting before you the arguments that side opposition would be presenting against the motion at hand. As the first speaker, I would lay the foundation of our arguments, presenting the ethos to the argument. Then the second speaker will further consolidate the arguments with some facts and figures all across the world, at the same time rebutting the points of the side proposition. And lastly, the third speaker will come up here and present the pathos to the arguments, emphasizing especially on the case of India. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are living in the 21st century, a century whose history has been stained with bloodshed, treason, felony, hatred. And mankind can only redeem by cooperation, by foreign relations. So now the question arises, why exactly do we need our politicians to visit these foreign nations? Well, according to side proposition, all that our politicians do is they spend the money of our citizens eating those exquisite meals we cannot even pronounce. That money that could have been used for the development of our country, the development of our motherland. But as they say, people love their illusions first and their follies the last. So here we stand as side opposition to present before you the follies of side or proposition. First of all, how can you expect the government to aid its own citizens without the support of other nations? Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important for us to clarify the fact that we are no longer living in fragmented pieces of land. We are living in a global world, a global village. We are the global citizens. And there are innumerous examples of such deals. The 2+2 dialogue between India, US, India, Nepal, India, Japan, the weapon trades, economic trades, all this would not have been possible if our politicians were simply sitting in their offices, sipping that spicy tea. But unfortunately, that is exactly what the side proposition wants from our government. Wynberg-Allen quote, arguing against globalization is like arguing against the laws of gravity. Pointless. Unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, today in this world, we need an international system that works for everyone and not a handful of them. And how is this possible? It will be possible if everyone gets fair representation. And this is where foreign relations come into play and the visits that our politicians are making into the foreign countries. Now, let me present you a very simple example. All of us have gathered here in this prestigious institution. Why? We can debate in our own schools, the same people, same language. Why do we have to come all the way from our schools to this institution? Because of the food, the views? Well, yes, of course, but we are also here to debate, to learn the social skills. Is it detrimental to me or my school or to you? Well, if you think that the development of self-confidence, moral values, unity, if you think that these are the flaws of character, then we all are flawed. Flawed to our very bones. Ladies and gentlemen, in the end, I want to remind you one single thing. Any foreign policy, no matter how ingenious, will not be successful if it was born in the minds of few and carried in the hearts of none. So I request you, fellow Indians, to support the government. Help the government with its policies, not just as an individual, but as a citizen of India, as a citizen of this world. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, people do not buy goods and services. They earn the relations, the stories, and the magic. And with that, I shall rest my case. Thank you.
Shrishti took 46 seconds extra. And now I'd like to call Cadet Harshvardhan Singh as the second speaker of the proposition to present his arguments.
With the permission of the chair. How can government help its people without the support of foreign nation? That is what the side opposition started with. It is like saying something, how can you resolve your family's disputes without the intervention of your neighbor? Greetings to the House. Today, I being the second speaker of side proposition, I'm here to uphold the resolution that visits of foreign countries by the Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. National welfare, let me put it simple, ladies and gentlemen, what is the character of this national welfare? I say the welfare of underdeveloped is national welfare. The welfare of agricultural laborer is national welfare. The welfare of poor is national welfare. And prosecuting the accused is national welfare. And the side opposition is going with a very parochial outlook because they have brought down the definition to only growth in GDP, improved infrastructure, foreign direct investment, and many such moral things. But who is really benefited from the side opposition's definition? That is the Tatas,
the Ambanis, Google, Microsoft, billionaires and tycoons, and not the common man, ladies and gentlemen, because these visits only and only invite investments, nothing else. It doesn't do anything for the common man. So, common man, if the roots of the country are not developed, then I don't think our nation can prosper. And these foreign visits are detrimental to the national welfare. Let me put it in a layman's language. I'm an Indian politician. I travel across the seas with great pomp and show. I sign memorandums of understandings, hold bilateral talks, and neglect the internal dynamics of my very own nation. I neglect the hue and cry over Article 377, 370, and 35A. I ignore the moral policing which is going on. I ignore the mobocracy. I ignore the religious tolerance and cry over spilled milk like the side opposition in the parliament over baseless arguments. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not what we are proposing. I say ignorance is hazardous. It can make our nation sick, very sick, and it is detrimental to national welfare. When politicians go out, they invite investments, and brains that work are foreign, and the hands that work are Indian. We are going into an age of regression, ladies and gentlemen, where we are becoming labor intensive and promote brain drain. Do we, as the responsible citizens of our country, want to do that? And the opposition wants it national welfare. I would like to quote example of our not too friendly neighbor, China. But why I appreciate China is because they followed the policy of isolation in the previous decades, wherein they made the progress of 10 years, they made the progress of 50 years in 10 years just by isolating themselves economically, politically, no visits outside, and see now, where is China? The economy is springing at a very fast pace. I think we need to take some motivation from China and not from the baseless arguments of the side opposition and go on developing if we have to do something worthwhile and not go on visiting foreign nations on the hard and money of our citizens. Let's not compromise the national welfare over selfish motives. I beg to propose. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan. I think we're well within time. Yeah. So now I'd like to request Charu Sharma of Dune International as the second speaker. Right, so we make that change. The second speaker is Prakhar Dobal, the second speaker of the opposition. Prakhar, all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Be it an individual or a nation, no one can survive alone in this world. At a time when world is being divided into factions, a nation needs allies. Being a developing nation, India needs all the support and help it can get. It is important for our ministers to visit various parts of the world to understand the efficient working of ministries there. The good relations between the nations are not always guided by the history, but sometimes these relations are determined by the relations of the leaders. As a matter of fact, India has been most benefited from the relations with US under President Obama. Why is it possible? It is possible because of the relations between PM Modi and President Obama. Such relations have been established due to the visits of PM Modi. In order to highlight the importance of foreign visits, we can compare the time of UPA and NDA. NDA government has frequently been criticized for its foreign visits, but we all do feel the difference, don't we? Today, India has a greater say at the international scenario than it had ever before. I fail to imagine how Indians stuck in Syria would have been evacuated, how India would have executed a surgical strike had Indian politicians not paid visits to foreign countries and built sound relations. It is important for us today to understand the potential of these visits. These visits can do wonders for a nation. In a democracy, it is the politicians and their actions that define the fate of a nation. If our politicians stop visiting foreign nations, it is just a matter of time before India finds herself isolated at the international forums, and all the help and aid being a tale of past. Why is it that countries like Japan and China are fighting each other over to invest in India? Why is it that all the nations will want to have good relations with India? This is because our politicians have visited the various nations and built good relationships with them. In a country like India, where the disparity among the poor rich and the poor is massive. It is important for our government to have good economic relations with other nations. And it is only possible with the interactions between politicians of the nations. With this, I rest my case.
Thank you, Charu. Charu took 2 minutes 32 seconds to present his arguments. That's Prakhar, I'm very sorry. Now I'd like to request Cadet Agam to please present his arguments as the third speaker of the proposition.
Information to chair. 324 people died in Kerala due to floods, which are being claimed as the deadliest ever in the past century. 5,650 farmers committed suicide, and innumerable others were exposed to toxic pesticides. But the million dollar question is, who is responsible? How do we prevent all this? The answer lies in the silence of this room, and today I'm going to answer it. Good afternoon, respected chairperson, honorable members of the jury, and the August gathering. Today, the bone of contention states that visits to foreign nations by politicians are detrimental to national welfare. And being the third speaker of our proposition, I would like to counter what side opposition today went wrong about, and then I would like to continue the arguments of our side. And the first thing which comes up here is we have been talking about the visits of a president to various nations. Our external ministry and delegates have been involved in various summits. Our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi made 57 nations in the past 3 years. Innumerable memorandum of understandings and agreements were signed. What happened to them? Let me tell you the ground reality. Nuclear and defense deals pending. Scams occurred and various kind of problems occurred. And therefore, that money of the taxpayers went in the pocket of these politicians, of these treacherous and conniving people who are feeding on the money of ours, of our taxpayers. Mutual cooperation is claimed between India, China. Mutual cooperation is claimed between India and Southeast Asian nations. We are an observatory part of the SAARC and of the ASEAN. But what happens actually on the northeast border of our nation? Insurgency takes place. Bloodshed is there. Weapons, drugs, and various kinds of other illegal materials is smuggled. It is trafficking. But for my opposition, this is not detrimental. When scams take place, my opposition says it is not detrimental, it is not useless. Now they propose to promote international peace. They propose to promote international harmony, learning to love. But what kind of learning has our own neighbor Pakistan done? Even after 72 years of independence, innumerable peace treaties, many memorandums of understandings and many meetings took place, but nothing happened. On the day when Imran Khan took oath as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the same day ceasefire was broken. 2 soldiers of our nation died. This is the ground reality. They talk about peace. Now, moreover, these were the failures of a visit. Second thing which comes up here is lack of attention towards the common masses. When the elections come, all of our ministers are busy and going and visiting different corners of our nation to improve or increase their vote share. What happens after that? After that, they're busy and they invest maximum amount of their or share of their time in outside nations, visiting other countries. They talk about the 21st century being filled with bloodshed. It has been present. War, disputes, quarrels has been present throughout the history. You can search on it. They say that we no more live in a fragmented piece of world. But I need to think that we need to rewind a geography lesson here. 7 continents, 203 nations, along with hundreds of religion and uncountable beliefs. In the end, I think it's time to revive the actual essence of democracy so that politicians can learn what is actually their work, what is the real essence they need to do. Because if they do it for the people, for the citizens, they do all the glory of all. Thank you.
Now I'd like to request Charu Sharma of Noor International School as the third speaker to present her views.
William J. Clinton quote: globalization is not a process that you can turn off, you can put off, you can switch off. It is like the forces of nature, like wind or water. It is unstoppable. A very warm good morning to one and all. This is Charu Sharma. Today, being the third speaker of side opposition, the onus on me is to facilitate the argument made by my teammates and to counter the vain arguments made by side proposition. However, it seems to me that the latter part of my job has already been done by side propositions, vain arguments, futile aspirations, and their pseudo emotional web of intricate lies. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to reiterate the point made by the first speaker when she said that the world today is a global village which thrives on social connectivity and social friendships. We need to realize that today, if we want India to be established as a national, international player, we need to have strong foreign relationships and strong foreign friendships. However, the side proposition is here today only to snatch the golden opportunity out of India's hands to rationalize and to validate their irrational belief system. Let's take an example, North Korea. The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has only undertaken 5 visits in his entire tenure. And look where it got them. Do I even need to start explaining the deplorable state that North Korea is in? Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that Kim Jong-un thought that North Korea does not need any foreign aid, any foreign friendships. It's too strong on its own. And look where it got them. And perhaps that's the idea that motivates side proposition to lay their vain arguments here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand what was common between Mozart, between Aristotle, between Socrates, between Sophocles. The common thing was that they understood what the value of inspiration. We have so much to learn from countries like Japan, Israel, United States of America. The way Japan lifted itself off after World War II, the way Israel includes women in its army, it's a lesson to the whole world, let alone India. And yet, side proposition here today expects our leaders to learn these values, to replicate these values without actually going to these nations, understanding their basic machinery. Ladies and gentlemen, let's for a moment consider the argument, however irrational it is, made by side proposition today. Maldives. The Indian representatives have not taken any recent visits to Maldives, and look what it got us. The Maldives government has denied visas to Indian nationals, and it has tremendously pleasant relationships with India's biggest threat, China. Today, the side proposition is working on one ideology and one ideology only. If the facts do not match our theory, let's change the facts, and it is the moral responsibility of us, of our, as side opposition, to make sure that the House knows what path India should adopt for the right development at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Charu. And now for the rebuttal. So I'd just like to draw your attention for the judges. At the bottom of the page, there is this. There's a space for writing the marks of the rebuttal. 10 marks for the rebuttal. Now another thing. Please keep to 3 minutes. Any arguments presented after 3 minutes will not be considered. All right. So that you get. Both the sides get 3 minutes. Right? Any argument presented after 3 minutes will not be considered at all. So we begin with Cadet Dhruv Daya. Please present your rebuttal.
Now let's take in consideration side opposition's arguments, ladies and gentlemen. They are saying that these visits aren't political stunts but for the betterment of our nation. Alright, well, why don't you answer me this question? In the Bihar polls in 2015, when African delegates were in Delhi, why was Narendra Modi not with these delegates and promoting BJP? Because BJP in that year was about to defeat Lalu Prasad Yadav's party. But in the recent debacle in the Bihar assembly polls, ladies and gentlemen, Narendra Modi was on a 3-day diplomatic trip to USA because BJP only won 53 seats and had no hope of winning in Bihar. So when it comes to winning, when it comes to making your political party win in India, you are there. But when it comes to promoting, ladies and gentlemen, when it actually comes to helping your country, you're on the foreign side. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they talked about how can you actually develop a nation or how can you help your people without going to foreign countries. It's not by sitting in your office and drinking lemonade. It's by going to the lower class of society. It's by going into those villages. It is by going and seeing the problems of those villages and not sitting in your office, and certainly not sending a basket of mangoes to Barack Obama so that India can prosper and as well as USA can prosper, ladies and gentlemen. Now you see how they talked about representation. Now how can you represent the society when you go and sign a deal with Israel, saying that Israel will make weapons for us and they will help our army to build weapons? Well, that is why different scams come from the refined deal scam and many other scams in our defense. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker came up and said, people want to invest in our nation or people want to have relations with us because our politicians go and visit their nation. No, please get your facts right. It is because there is cheap labor in our nation. People want to invest, people want to grow. And MNCs and people want because we have cheap labor, not because we go and visit them, drop a basket of mangoes and give them a letter saying that yes, let's sign a deal and India is on your side. Ladies and gentlemen, they said that the people expect foreigners to come and help us. When a politician gives a speech to become the prime minister, when a politician gives a speech, he says, I will help you. I personally will come and help you. Does he ever say, I will sign a deal with USA, I will sign a deal with Israel, and then I will help the population? No. The population expects him to do it himself, and that's why they elect him. But no, they are out on foreign trips in the name of diplomacy, ladies and gentlemen. What is the self-destructing weapon of an Indian? It's called ego. Now, when a person sees that the prime minister is in a foreign country and asking for relations, he says, why is the prime minister asking help from a foreign country and why can't he do it himself? What is wrong in our country that we cannot solve it ourselves and why is he asking help from foreign countries? Ego is the most self-destructing factor in our country, ladies and gentlemen. Now, they said that MNCs will grow. Is that people will come and invest in our nation that's going to help in the growth of our nation? Well, MNCs are only going to displace the self-help groups in our nation. The people who are not employed, the people who have to be self-employed. Why do you think the new movie Sui Dhaga is coming? So that, ladies and gentlemen, they show that you can become from unemployed to self-employed and a true sense of entrepreneurship can be instilled in our people. They talk about the world not being fragmented. Well, geography tells us it's fragmented and everything else also tells us it's fragmented. They say that the world is becoming divided, ladies and gentlemen. What about the Indian division? You're talking about division between countries. What about the Dalits and the Lingyas in our own society that are getting divided? What about the Hindus and Muslims that fight every day? What about the internal division? Cleanliness starts from within, clean from within, and then clean the exterior and make good foreign relations. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would like to rest my case and I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to request Shrishti Nautiyal of Tour International to present her rebuttal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's side opposition would have loved to nullify and rebut the points of side proposition. But we failed, ladies and gentlemen, because that work was done by side proposition itself. Let's talk about their points. First of all, the second speaker came here and he talked about that how the neighbors should not interfere in the familial matters. Well, what if the familial matter is of domestic violence, child harassment? What do you expect of the neighbor? Should they just stay outside because, oh, they are our neighbors? We are not supposed to visit them, even if that is for the greater good of humanity. Secondly, they talked about how side opposition is all about GDP and economic development, even though that's a farce. We talked about every single aspect of the topic. But if they are not interested in the GDP or the economic development of the country, then how do they propose to curb the growing problem of unemployment in the country? Do they want Narendra Modi to just give up all his trips, go to the unemployed and tell them, I can't give you the jobs, but here are my condolences. Because this is exactly what the side proposition was trying to say in the House today. Moreover, they talked about China's isolation and the national welfare that would bring. What kind of welfare are you actually talking about? China is a country where the people are not having democracy, 10 lakh of Muslims are imprisoned, their own people are being oppressed. Is this the kind of national welfare that the side proposition seeks today? Moreover, they talked about the Kerala floods, Chennai floods. Well, I need to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that whenever India faced such issues, we received the help from our partners. We received the help from the nations with which we had better relationships. India has risen from its status of a subjugated nation to a simple nation, and only because of the visits that our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been making in the past few years. Moreover, they are talking about saving the lives of these thousands and thousands of people in Kerala floods. Well, if they are ready to give up that support system, aren't they ready to give up the lives of those thousands of people? So, side proposition, are you being hypocritical for this special occasion or are you such hypocrites every day? They talked about our great soldiers fighting at the borders. The arms, they come from Russia, France, the sponsorship from other countries as well. Today, the side proposition is hell bent over giving up every support system that our country has gathered over the past few decades. Either they are in the mood of felony or in the mood of national suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, the government is of the people, for the people, by the people. History has shown us that wherever there is a fail in the communication, there is a communication gap between the countries. It resulted in wars. And that is something we would not want to be repeated again. We, as side opposition, stand here today for prosperity, for development, for unity, and not for hypocrisy, isolation, self destruction, and in the long run, perhaps a war. And it is your choice, ladies and gentlemen, to choose the right side. But before your choice, make sure you remember that war is never a good thing. It never determines who is right, it only determines who is left behind. And I hope that we won't be left behind because of the hypocritical views of side proposition.
Thank you,
With
Shruti.
that, I shall rest my case. Thank you.
RIMC and Dune International, would you like to sit there and watch the others, or do you want to sit here? Please go right ahead. You can go sit in the audience, okay? Since we run with your debate, right? Right. So now I let them go. I let them go because there going to be no questions. So I would like them to watch the others as well. So please sit. And now we continue with St. George's College in Wynberg-Allen. And of course, the topic is the same. Visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. And I request Aryan Roy of St. George's College as the first speaker of the proposition to present his views.
Good afternoon to the House at large. Today, I, Aryan Roy, Prime Minister side proposition, stands before you to debate on the very topic. Visit to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to the national welfare. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to propose. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin with this debate, as the Prime Minister of side proposition, it is my duty to define the macroscopic keywords of this topic. Detrimental here would mean deleterious or harmful, whereas welfare in this context would mean development in political, social, and economical sphere. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in order to demonstrate that how visit to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to the national welfare, we need to prove to you that how such visits are degrading factors and inhibitions to the national welfare. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, today's side proposition raises its concern that how would such visits bring development in the political, social, and economical spheres, which would be the duty of opposition henceforth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, moving down to the first constructive that side proposition would like to present, it is deleterious to economic growth. Today, when these politicians travel to foreign countries, what we must understand is that from the expenditure of the flight tickets to accommodations, their transport to their fooding, every bit of it is paid from the budget of the Indian government. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the very same budget which is collected from the general public in the name of tax. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the very same tax which every Indian citizen pays in the hope that tomorrow he or she would get better roads to drive on. Tomorrow he or she would be provided with 24 into 7 electricity. Tomorrow he or she would not have to go to bed without a satisfying meal. And to talk about facts and figures, an expenditure of rupees 1,484 crore has been spent on chartered flights, maintenance of aircraft, and hotline facilities during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to foreign countries since June 2014. Pointing out the very loophole here, ladies and gentlemen, the profit estimated by such foreign visits are themselves being countered by the expenditure of the very same. How ironical, ladies and gentlemen. How ironical. And still, if the opposition today is bent on their stand, it is nothing but a fabric of distortions, misrepresentations, misinterpretations, and misleading to say that such foreign visits by Indian politicians are not detrimental to the welfare of the nation. And with this, I beg to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Now I'd like to request Sudhanshu Shibrani of Wynberg-Allen to present his views as the first speaker of the opposition.
We have people in our country who desire happiness. We are a country that desires help and support and cooperation of all other countries. We are a country that desires international peace. But then we have a few people in our country who do not even want to allow their politicians to visit the foreign countries. Good afternoon to the gathering at large. Today, I, Deepansh Jabrani, stand before you as the leader of opposition, and I feel it is my duty to apprise you to a certain phrase in the topic today, which is detrimental to the development of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, what is this phrase? It is merely an opinion of the proposition that they have been trying to patronize without really justifying it. It is merely an opinion that has been held by the country for a long period of time just because it has been hardwired in the brains of the people. But how does it change? This is the petrified opinion everyone holds. And unfortunately, today the proposition is holding this petrified opinion. This is where I come up with my first constructive in the words of Mark Twain. Loyalty to petrified opinion never freed any human soul nor broke any chain. And that is why I would like the proposition to rise above their emotional bubble where they keep on saying that the hard-earned money of the people of our country, we expect them to build the roads and the development of the country. But ladies and gentlemen, let me also ask them, have you ever taken into account the proportion of the investment we get into the country after spending the 1484 crores of money that you mentioned in your own debate? Ladies and gentlemen, has the proposition ever asked themselves that these visits to foreign countries could possibly be due to some reason? These politicians have come here after months and months of canvassing. Are they here to make a mockery of themselves? Don't you think they would have thought about it before doing something? Can you tell yourselves that there has been no benefit from these foreign countries' visits? This, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to answer with a few examples. Samsung, a South Korean company, has formed the largest smartphone producing plant in our very own country, ladies and gentlemen. You look at the Rafael deal, which the proposition again I think will criticize, but you look at the facts and figures, India can now produce its spare parts itself, therefore promoting Make in India. These are just a few of the examples that I have presented to you today, ladies and gentlemen. Our Prime Minister has been able to develop the country on the basis of what he's learned from the visits to the other countries. They have talked about welfare as social, political, and economic development as a whole. They want economic development, but they don't want us to go to a foreign country. They want economic development, but they do not want us to interact with the other countries. How will we achieve economic development? Talking about social development, Meghan Markle came to India and told everyone about our culture over there. If this is not welfare of the people, then what is? Thank you.
Now I'd like to request Deadho of St. George's College as the second speaker of the proposition to present his views.
Good afternoon to the respected audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic on the floor of the South states, visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to the welfare of the nation. I am Babu Swasilia, representing side proposition, and I'm very proud to propose. Ladies and gentlemen, the first constructive this side of the table we'd like to put forth is titled this, Spread of Internal Matters of the Nation. I think all Indians realize the fact that we know why politicians go to other countries. We know why politicians go there. They just go there to gain fame. They just want to be recognized by the world community. They don't have any ulterior, any good motive for the nation, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you the example of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Mr. Rahul Gandhi went to UCLA and accused our Prime Minister. Why didn't he understand the simple fact that time when he was addressing a gathering at UCLA, he was a representative of India and was mocking the actual leader of the nation who is there at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. How can a person mock his own leader? How can a politician mock the leader of the parliament at the moment? I understand Mr. Rahul Gandhi would be thinking him to be as an opponent, but in the international sphere, that opponent of his is the international recognized face of India, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you what happens in the world. Politicians go to foreign countries, they give some statements and that are really controversial. These statements form opinions to the people. People form opinions with these statements, and there are so many problems because of these opinions. If I tell you that my city is flooded, my city does not have proper roads, my city is having a lot of air pollution, will you come to my city? I don't think any of you would like to come to my city. That the same thing happens to the tourism industry of India. It is hit by high voltage because of this kind of fluctuations by our own politicians. When our politicians go abroad, and some of the words said by them are used as a cherry-picked examples by say, different countries like Pakistan. The government of Pakistan, with some cherry-picked words of our politician, accused India of human rights, accused India of so many other rights that it has violated, which it has never done. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to realize that I'm not here to take political stand. I'm not here to support politicians or anyone else. But I'm simply trying to prove to you, ladies and gentlemen, that if politicians are there in the nation, they need to work inside the nation for the well-being of the people. As that side of the table simply prove to us that politicians go and give us direct investments. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the money that we invest to go abroad is much higher than the investment that comes back to India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I would like to request Anand Kodri as the second speaker of the opposition to present his views.
Good afternoon to the House at large. As the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, I would like to draw your attention to the operative word of today's debate, detrimental, which simply means downright harmful. Now, the proposition needs to understand that these visits by Indian politicians to foreign countries might not prove to be beneficial every time, but they are in no way detrimental. And therefore, I would like to urge the proposition not to confuse the word detrimental with unbeneficial, because, in the words of Emma Goldman, someone has said that it requires less mental effort to condemn than to think. They are condemning the politicians and saying that their visits are detrimental when it is rarely so. Ladies and gentlemen, what we need to understand is that if a visit by an Indian politician, let's say Mr. ABC, to the country XYZ regarding an export-import issue did not yield fruitful results, then it does not mean that the visit was harmful or detrimental in any way. It was just unbeneficial. In fact, I would like to add that these foreign visits could prove to be a huge positive to national welfare in the long run. But the critics of our nation, they have got nothing better to do than to sit back in their chairs and keep passing inappropriate comments on the government and its ways. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that in our system of government, there is a whole ministry for external affairs and overseas Indian affairs, and it is there for a reason, not just to add seats to the Lok Sabha, because we are in many ways dependent on other nations. Every year, India imports goods worth over $200 billion and exports goods worth over $150 billion. Now, if we are going to have such kind of business relations with other countries, then our politicians, our leaders, do need to visit the other countries to interact with their leaders so that we can settle out the disputes, and a strong bond of relationship can be built with these countries. After all, India is a developing country, and for our transition into a developed country, we are going to require all the help that we can get, be it from inside or outside. And still, how the proposition can manage to call these foreign visits detrimental to national welfare remains a mystery to me. Now, the member of opposition will further elaborate and conclude the stand that the side opposition has taken today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to request Rajesh Akaria from George's College to please present his views as the third speaker of the proposition.
Good afternoon to all the members of this August gathering. The motion on the floor of this House states that visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to the welfare of the nation. And I, Rajat Tapadia, Chief Whip Side Proposition, am proud to propose. Ladies and gentlemen, today the opposition has given us a loosely knitted, a baseless, and an absolutely null and void case, trying to misguide the audience, trying to misguide the House by providing self-suited, nitpicked, self-inclined facts. And it is my duty as Chief Whip today to counter all their facts and consolidate my team's argument. Ladies and gentlemen, they say that although sometimes foreign visits are not beneficial, they are never detrimental. That is where the conflict lies, ladies and gentlemen. If they are not beneficial, if certain foreign visits are not beneficial, why are crores and crores being spent on just chartering the flight that the politician takes to go to the foreign country? Then for his accommodation, for his food, ladies and gentlemen, from the Coca-Cola bottle that he drinks to the five-star accommodation, seven-star accommodation that the politician gets is all funded by the national and public exchequer, that is the treasury, which my prime minister has already said. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, even though they are trying to misguide us, they have failed, because the very fact that it's not beneficial and still cost is involved proves that we are economically going down due to these expenditures. And I reiterate the fact given by my first speaker that 1,484 crores have already been spent on the 84 countries visits that Narendra Modi has taken since June 2014. Similarly, ladies and gentlemen, late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi also made 113 visits. But what was the use? Did the use balance the expense that was involved? That is the question I once again ask the other side to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, also they say that no chain is weakened by foreign visits. There is this important saying, there is this popular saying that goes like, a chain is as strong as the weakest link. And ladies and gentlemen, when I talk of the weakest link, the 0.35 billion people or more in this nation are the weakest link. I'm talking about the 35% people about 25% people who are below the poverty line. I'm talking about those people who are not even getting 3 meals a day. And ladies and gentlemen, we are planning to invest billions of money and getting it from abroad. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we need to realize that when our Prime Minister represents us in other nations, he does not just get benefits, he has to give some benefits in turn. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, since the Prime Minister represents the government, and the government here in India is for the people, of the people, by the people, I urge you to realize that the Prime Minister first must solve our problems as the people, rather than focusing on global development and getting aid from abroad. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we can develop much more, but the red tapeism and bureaucracy that is involved actually counterbalances the effect. With that, ladies and gentlemen, today I don't ask you to clap because I'm not a politician. I just want you to realize that that side opposition is justified today because you are Indians. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'd like to request Sridhar Mukherjee of Wynberg-Allen as a third speaker of the opposition to present his views.
A very good afternoon to the House at large. As the member of opposition, I would like to begin my debate in the words of Nicholas Breton, who said, "Thus much for thy assurance know, a hollow friend is but a hellish foe." Do we want such hollow friends, ladies and gentlemen? We do not. Let us remember that when Indian politicians pay foreign visits, they do not do it for their own enjoyment. They do it to improve foreign relations. If India were to be involved in a war, how would foreign relations help, you might ask? Now, here are a few facts. The Indian Air Force uses Sukhoi Su-35s, which are manufactured by Russia. We also use T-90 tanks, once again manufactured by Russia. If Indian politicians had not consolidated a defense agreement with Russia, would the Indian army have been as strong as it is today? We all know that the answer is no. Politicians have also achieved fruitful results of their previous visits. For example, the Indo-Nepal Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the Brussels Agreement, the Hague Protocol, to name but three.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are over 200 such treaties which have been signed between foreign countries and India. In spite of so many precedents, can the proposition still say that foreign visits by Indian politicians are fruitless? They can say that only if they decide to turn a blind eye to these 259 precedents. I would like to present my second argument in the form of an English proverb, which many of us might have heard. Exceptions don't make a rule. Similarly, just because one foreign visit has proved to be detrimental for the country in the past does not mean that all of them had been detrimental and will prove to be so in the future. Just because Rahul Gandhi made comments one time does not mean that every politician is a Rahul Gandhi or that every politician will continue to make such useless comments. Ladies and gentlemen, why should India require external help to solve internal problems? For the same reason that we use products which are made in China and Japan, simply because it has now become an integral part of our country and our economy. Now, to rebut some of the points made by the proposition, the Prime Minister said that people wish to go to bed with a proper meal and a proper job. Now, let us be very clear about one thing. The government cannot provide a meal to everyone and a job to everyone simply because it is impractical, because it is not possible. In the words of Oscar Wilde, it is not your fault if you are born poor, but if you die poor, it is your fault. The proposition is saying that just because a person does not have food to eat, the government should always provide it to them. The government will provide it to them if the situation demands it. However, if the people themselves do not work, why should the government help them? I think the proposition should answer that when they come for rebuttal. In the words of Robert N. Anthony, an organizational theorist, when you blame others, you give up your part to change. Similarly, when the proposition blames the government for wasting the money on overseas ventures, they give up their part to change by accepting the fact that there have been fruitful effects and they will continue to be so. We will not be able to see these improvements in the short run because they will be in the long run. The second speaker talked of opinions which politicians express abroad which cause controversy. Can they give the example of even one comment made by a politician other than Rahul Gandhi which is as controversial? I doubt it, ladies and gentlemen. The third speaker said that our argument is baseless until they prove it to be so. I would like them not to throw around words like this so carelessly. I would also like to point out that not everything is entirely good or bad. And nobody can read the future, ladies and gentlemen. So nobody can predict whether a foreign visit will be successful or not before it is even done. It is only after the visit has been paid that we realize what has happened, and we cannot always predict future events. And with that, I would like to rest my case. Thank you.
We will give it 56 seconds extra, right? I would request everyone to please make sure that you do not exceed the time allotted. Now, I'd like to request Aryan Roy of St. George's College to rebut as the Speaker of the House. No, we'll do it first. The proposition does it first. That's what happened in the previous debate.
Good afternoon to the House at large once again. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 speeches down from side opposition. Astonishing claims, I must say. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in order to win this debate, we had to prove to you that how such visits are degrading factors and inhibitions to the national welfare, which we have proved through our 3 constructives: deleterious to economic growth, rise of controversies, and exposure of international matters. However, ladies and gentlemen, the side opposition today have failed in their duty to prove to us one simple thing: how such visits would bring development in the political, social, and economical space. All they have given us today are cherry-picked facts, self-suited, and baseless points. The first speaker of side opposition comes and talks about how these foreign visits are bringing profit to our nation. As earlier stated in my debate, how ironical is it that the very process of bringing the profit is countering the very same. Ladies and gentlemen, simple mathematics. When cost price is more than selling price, it equals to loss. Ladies and gentlemen, today the proposition understands the importance of global network and considers it essential for the nation to send representatives for exchange of thoughts and ideas. And thus, we have a more refined and practical solution to it. Sir, your answer, diplomats. Diplomats who can very well attend the matters of international affairs. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, all such visits to foreign nations, attending the seminars, speech at foreign universities is not what would matter. What would matter is the service these politicians do towards India. For someone has rightly said, charity begins at home. With this, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. So, in the next 50 seconds to present your rebuttal. I'd now like to request the Bal Chaudhani of Wynberg-Allen to present his rebuttal.
The side proposition has continuously said that they have been able to prove that it is detrimental to the development of our country. And now, what are the examples that they have given? Only economic examples. And what they have said is cost price increases more than the market price, cost price is more than the selling price. What they have said that the investment is lesser than what we are giving when we are going outside. But what is the value? Have you been able to provide us the proper facts and figures proving that the cost price has increased than the selling price? When you don't have facts, then what are you justifying on the basis of, is my question to the proposition. They said that if I am a politician and I tell you that my country has a lot of pollution, would you like to come to my country? But they did not name even one politician who made this statement in a foreign country. Only goes on to show that all their facts have been completely made up while they have been sitting on the armchair, like we make use of phrase like armchair politicians. This is what the proposition today has been advocating, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go to foreign countries, just sit in your armchairs and enjoy your life. Let us also understand the fact that they have been saying that we have presented to you self-inclined, nitpicked facts. At least we've presented to you facts. Have you been able to rise above your 1484 crores that have been spent in accommodations and fooding facilities for the politicians? A chain is strongest, as strong as its weakest link is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the proposition said, and I completely agree with them. But they said that we have not been able to do anything to help the people below the poverty line. That is a farce. 27% of the people that were in the below the poverty line in 2013 have been brought over the poverty line in the last 5 years. If this is not development, then I would like to ask the proposition, what really is development? Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important to understand that we had presented examples regarding economic growth, social and political growth, but they continuously mention that we didn't. Now, this is just another example of not getting out of your petrified opinion in itself. Ladies and gentlemen, what examples has the opposition presented? If you talk about political examples, we obviously mentioned the Meghan Markle example. You look at when Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee died, we got a letter from Russia saying that they were really sad about the death of him and how they sent their condolences. That is political. Economic, you look at most of the MNCs today, may be Apple, Samsung, OnePlus, they're producing phones in our very own country. You look at trains are being built in our own country, airlines are making airplanes in our very own country. Is this not economic development? If this is not economic development, then I don't know what the proposition's concept of economic development is. The fact that proposition has not even mentioned one correct, genuine example of how it has been detrimental to our country only goes on to prove they don't have a stand to take today. Thank you.
Thank you, Wynberg-Allen. I'd like to begin with the Summer Valley, Vartika Bharadwaj of Summer Valley as the first speaker of the proposition.
Money saved is money earned. Good afternoon, respected chairperson, honorable judges, teachers, and my dear friends. I, Vartika Bharadwaj, Lead speaker of Samavali School proposed the topic: Visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. By proposing this in the House, we intend to make you all aware of how, instead of utilizing the money for the welfare of Indian citizens, it is being wasted on vague foreign trips. We will state and prove our points by certain constructives. I will be focusing on how foreign trips are badly affecting the economy of India. A second speaker will elaborate on the statistics related to the point. And lastly, our third speaker will paint the picture of the hideous reality of the working of Indian politicians. First of all, I would like to state the obvious. If Indian politicians are not present in India, then how will they be able to know about the problems prevailing in India? Instead of visiting foreign countries, these politicians should visit the rural areas of our country and gain a first-hand experience of the problems faced by the common people of India. It is only by this way can they provide real solutions to their problems. When we compare the number of trips made by Indian politicians and the progress in the relationships between India and other countries in the past few years, we can here clearly make out that India has not benefited much. The money which the Indian citizens pay in the form of tax for the development of India is being carelessly spent on these luxurious trips. The foreign visits made by our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi have hardly helped India in gaining anything. The losses which have incurred due to these foreign trips exceed the profits which have been made by the same. Moreover, if our Prime Minister is not present in the country, then how will the parliamentary machinery of our country work? If there is a crisis in our country today and our Prime Minister is not even here, how will he help us? How will the people suffering in the crisis be saved? How can they be provided with relief? I would now leave this case to the further two speakers who will throw light on the statistics of the recent past and the so-called development which the politicians think they have made. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali Gupta of the Surya Public School was the first speaker of the opposition, presenting her views. Right. Tenzin Chodan of Missouri Public School is the first speaker of the opposition, presenting her views. Yes. Tenzin, could you just wait a minute? Let them just sit in the audience and then you can begin. Please continue.
Since 2014, many foreign trips have been made by our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and his ministers to learn ways and methods to improve our nation, India. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence to this statement is there before you all to see. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here. Today, I, Tenzin Chodan, representing Missouri Public School, would like to speak against the motion for the topic: visits to foreign countries by Indian politicians are detrimental to national welfare. We can see the changes that have come and are visible all across the country. We have to admit that advanced nations like USA, UK, and France, etc., are far more advanced than any other country. And to learn from these countries, we have to go to these countries. But the question arises, who will go? Except politicians and bureaucrats. You don't expect them to come to our home and do things for us. It is thanks to the learning foreign trips made by our politicians that help in the change towards the betterment of infrastructure and economy. It takes time to show evidence, but it takes time for the It takes time for the evidence to show, but the evidence is already showing. Quoting the example of our very own Masuri, Mr. Jodh Singh, the former chairman of the board, went to China to change the sewage system of Masuri after learning it from his official trip to China. The world today is all about give and take. So sometimes we give and sometimes we take. In past, in space technology, we piggy rode on the back of Soviets. But now, not anymore. We have a very own successful space mission manned by our own scientists. In fact, we are helping in giving smaller nations like Bangladesh, Nepal, Mali, Bhutan, etc., and many other African countries. The politicians are in power and they are in position to decide on the change. In my opinion, I feel the politicians are doing a service to the nation by doing a serious educational trips all around the world. Just like the ministers of Modi government, the evidence is that all you see. People People have to be present physically, face to face, to get bilateral economic educational treaties signed. They can't discuss confidential matter on Skype, And the economic growth is one of the beneficial factors. So I rest my case.
Agri Biroli of Summer Valley School to present her views as the second speaker of the proposition. Okay, Manuswini Pant, that's the second speaker.
A very good afternoon to the August gathering. Being the second speaker, I would like to enlighten you with a few points. If you still think that the politicians improved foreign relations with the other countries by making the foreign trips, then, my dear friends, you seriously need to change your views. If India has so much better relations with the other countries, then it wouldn't have been hard for for the government to arrest Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi. It surely does not require 2 long years to arrest Vijay Mallya, and even when he's not hiding in Pakistan, where we have better relations. Now, let me bring to your notice the how much Mr. Modi has spent on his trips. PM Modi has spent over 355 crore. Yes, my dear friends, 355 crore traveling to 52 countries in 4 years. RTI responded, spending around 165 days. PM Modi's 9-day trip to France, Germany, and Canada was the costliest of all, costing over 31 crores. And my friends, let me remind you, when RTI requested for the details of PM Modi's domestic trip, they refused. And this is just officially. Unofficially, he might have spent much more. Commendable, Mr. Modi. From my own family, 3 people pay taxes. And I simply can't see the development when, in my ward level, forget about the national level. There are countless people who are struggling hard to earn even 7.39 lakhs a year. And these politicians simply waste people's money on their luxurious trips. And if these politicians visit so many countries, the relations should have been far, far better, and Vijay Mallya should have been arrested and must be in India's jail till now. We don't care who gave the loan to Mallya or Neil. It is whether it be Congress or it be BJP. We all care about the money that needs to be restored. Increasing assistance from other countries run the risk of having to become their allies in case of global issue. For instance, had India been an ally of Saudi Arabia, rescuing so many people from Yemen by India would have been unimaginable. The perceived neutrality of India worked to its advantage. It is the lack of the very same which did not allow USA to carry out and rescue operations in Yemen. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had travelled from India to Pakistan via the first bus to commute between the two countries. But His efforts made our relations with Pakistan better, to make our relations with Pakistan better, have all gone in vain over the course of the last 2 decades. With this, I would like to rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to request Anjali Gupta. Is that Anjali Gupta? Right, as the second speaker to present her views.
With permission of the chairperson. I'm Anjali Gupta, representing Missouri Public School as the second speaker in the opposition. Good afternoon, everyone. India has a long, long way to go to be completely technologically sufficient, where 80% of the people still deficient outside. How can India be technologically advanced? To achieve this advancement, we need the knowledge and expertise of foreign countries. You don't expect foreigners to lift their multiple samples of their bridges, buildings, and works and bring them to India. To see these technologies and learn, we have to travel abroad and see them in their right context and picture. So who is going to do that? All Indians can't go. It is the politician who has the power and the freedom to fund allocation who can do the needful. After all, he's the elected representative of us, the people of our democracy. Prime Minister Modi has made many trips abroad and has been severely criticized for it by the opposition. But they fail to see where India is today. It is the sixth most powerful country in the world. The world is looking at India and towards India with a different perspective. The world has accepted its invitation to come and make in India. All thanks to Mr. Modi and his far-sighted foreign trips. Mr. Manmohan Singh went on very few foreign trips. He was more interested in being in the country and kowtowing to the Gandhi family. Maybe if he had been more interested in learning something new and use his opportunity to visit the countries and give something back to the country, maybe he would have not criticized him in this way. So, foreign trips by politicians are very necessary for bringing knowledge and making deals for the betterment of a nation and a people. I completely support my friend when she says foreign trips made by politicians are necessary for the betterment of a nation. We are not a closed society now that we can survive on our own. Moreover, foreign trips are also important to keep up good foreign relationship with our nations and the rest of the world. And also, the foreign trip resulting in the exchanges are always beneficial for both the countries. Medical tourism would have not reached this level of importance if politicians did not back it. Sushma Swaraj, who is a foreign minister, is responsible for bringing medical tourism to this high level today. How could she have achieved it if she had not traveled? I rest my case with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalid. And now Himadri Budori and Samawali School as the third speaker of the proposition.
He wields suits in his foreign trip meetings, which gives an opportunity to Rahul Gandhi, who has a number of followers and admirers, mind the sarcasm, to call the government as Soot Boot Wali Sarkar. A very good afternoon to the August gathering. Being the third member of the side proposition, I would now elaborate on the points of our second speaker. Now, let me draw your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to the hideous reality. As the Prime Minister is trying to run or govern the whole country from his office, everything has to go through the PMO. When he was in Toronto, over 6,000 files were due for his approval. This led to backlog and delay in everything. Foreign trips are expensive due to complex logistics. And when the press accompanies the government, a lot of money is wasted on their travel. When in their foreign trips, politicians lose in touch with what's actually going on in the country. Not that they're really aware of the pathetic socio-economic society and the plight of the farmers. The politicians go and waste the money of a taxpayer, where hundreds of millions of farmers in India are suffering. I'm sure that everyone present in the House will agree with me on the point that USA stands as one of the most developed countries in the world. The number of foreign trips made by Indian politicians in comparison to the trips made by the former US President Mr. Barack Obama is much more. And the reality lies in front of each one of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we know where India stands today. It is nowhere, it is not next to where the USA is so much developed. If the visits to foreign countries is really helpful, then I would like to ask my side opposition why today the differences between India and China and Pakistan still remain the same. Now let me bring it to your notice, ladies and gentlemen, that over the past few years, China has been using its veto power against India, because of which India was unable to attain a permanent membership for itself in the United Nations. Now, I would like to leave my side opposition with this question that how has those 1,000 foreign trips benefited our country? With this, I would like to rest my case. Thank you.
We have Pinari of Missouri Public School presenting her views as a third member of the opposition.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I reiterate the points my two friends have made. Every country has a Ministry of External Welfare, and a special minister is allotted the minister of this external. While if every country has a foreign ministry, so do you all feel that countries are dumb? Each of the country has a foreign ministry to glorify the relations of each country. The world is one family, and as we visit our relation in other cities, the foreign visits are important for our country. And who could handle the foreign visits better than our elected representatives and the bureaucrats? Coming to India and Mr. Modi's visit, we can see the benefits we have made with the data that I represent before you. Japan committed to invest 35 billion. Australia signed a new security pact. India Australia inked 5 pacts. After a bilateral talk between Modi, Abbott Australia and India signed new security pact and commit to new security pact, a future free agreement. Canada agrees to supply uranium to India for next 5 years. Now you might be thinking, what is the importance of uranium? Uranium will help us for the next 5 years for the 7 nuclear plants. France is going to invest 2 billion of euros in India. USA will invest 41 billion. Foreign visits bring us money, business, respect, bilateral agreements and treaties, trade exchange, import and export. To sign these lateral treaties and agreements, what do you think? They can be signed in the air or digitally? A person have to be there, physically present to sign those treaties as they are so important for our countries. We cannot escape from the fact that politicians are a very necessary part of our countries. They are the elected representatives of our country. If they don't travel business trips, then who will? Bureaucrats help in forming policies, but it is the politicians who has the privilege, authority and the duty to implement those.
So don't deny the politicians' right, duties, and foreign trips. And at the end, as my opposition said, that we haven't made any profit by these foreign trips. As I mentioned, we have made so much of profit by these foreign trips. It is not only the money spent, it is the money and the treaties signed and come to India. Thank you.
Present for rebuttal.
Good afternoon once again. India is not a superpower and cannot convince the real superpowers so as to what they should do. So Indian politicians going to foreign countries is absolutely useless. I do agree that some of the trips that are made by the Indian politicians are able to bring huge funds to India. But tell me, how many of these trips succeed? How many of these trips really succeed? How many of these trips are able to yield a positive result? If the meeting is not successful, all the money spent on this trip is gone. And as for what you said, we are not expecting them to come up to our house and solve our problems. But we have elected them for a reason. If they are not there when we are facing a crisis, or if they cannot help us when we need them, then why have we elected them? Get on the plane and have a world tour. You said that we need the technologies of foreign countries to develop. So let me bring it to your notice that the CEOs of most of the biggest companies of the world are Indians. Let me tell you that we were able to make a nuclear weapon all by ourselves. Believe me, my friends, we have enough brilliant minds who can work for a better India. You said foreign trips are required for creating friendly relations amongst countries. Well, our Prime Minister has visited China like so many times. But has it resulted in anything good? China is still attacking our soldiers. China is still using its veto power so that India doesn't become a permanent member of the United States. For what reason? So that India doesn't become more powerful. I'm not saying that stop interacting with the foreign countries. I'm not saying that stop visiting foreign countries. But so many visits? I mean, like a prime minister alone visited 52 countries in 4 years. If you're visiting so many countries in such a little span of time, then I'm sorry to say it doesn't seem like work to me. It seems more like a holiday which is being funded by the citizens of India. Well, at the end, I would just like to say that foreign visits made by Indian politicians are totally detrimental to national welfare. Well, before leaving this podium, I would like to thank Wynberg for being such a great audience. Thank you so much.
Let me request the first speaker of the opposition to add for rebuttal. MPS, the first speaker of the opposition, please.
With the world's sixth largest military expenditure, second largest armed force, sixth largest economy by nominal rates, and third largest economy in terms of purchasing power. India is a regional power, a global power, and a potential superpower. India has growing international influence and a prominent voice in global affairs. Still, my worthy opponents still think that India is not powerful as any other country such as USA. Yes, they are more advanced than us, but yet we did not fall behind we did not fall behind as them. The opposition claims that the politicians are not present in India just because they are visiting a foreign country. It doesn't mean that visiting a foreign country, you're not looking into the affairs of their own country. Even if you visit another country, you do not remain there forever. Foreign trips are a part of the political life through which they can work for national betterment. And as for China has to do well relationships with India because India is the largest market for China. Discuss about profits. My worthy opposition, are you just ignorant about the investment of treaties signed? If one visit was in vain, you cannot call all the visits detrimental. As you mentioned, the visit of Atal Bihari Vajpayee to Pakistan. I guess you did not pay much attention to our debate as you asked that visiting so many foreign countries, visiting so many for as my worthy opponent said, if you would have been listening to our debate carefully, you wouldn't have been questioning the foreign trips taken by our politicians because we clearly stated how many treaties were signed and how it helped our nation. At the end, I would like to conclude by saying we accept the fact that the world globe is one family and one has to visit one's family as our Vedas tell us, Vasudev Kutumbakam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you, Samarani and everybody who can the audience. Thank you. And thank you for being such a patient audience. I'd like to thank the judges. And I request the hall monitors to please come up here and clear the stage for the prize distribution. Control room, could you close the curtain, please? Control room, could you please close the curtains? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very long day, and we're indeed very privileged to have amongst us Mr. Christopher Lowe, uh, who has helped us to adjudicate two debates. I'd like to request Sir to please come up and address the gathering. Thank you, sir.
recording the law. Let's stop the stream. Stop it. Yes.